Right, good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for joining. This is our next session, which is going to be focused on HP Morpheus and Proxmox. AC is going to go through all the technical deep dive, demo what this looks like for you guys, how it compares to VMware. Very similar to the layout of the Hyper-V session. Everything's being recorded and will be available after this as well, but please be as interactive as you have been on the last couple of sessions. Ask away. AC is here to answer any questions that you've got. But yeah, I'll pass you over to Tim and we can crack on.
Hello, hey guys and girls. This week we're going to explore Proxmox and VME, the two KVM solutions that are more akin to a normal hypervisor. The next week we'll be looking at Red Hat OpenShift, which if you want to do modernization and containers and virtual machines together, that's the place to be. If you just vanilla VMs and you're not ever going to go containers, you could still use OpenShift. There's nothing wrong with that. But these two are just pretty straightforward virtual machine replacements. We're going to go through them in different sections. So we'll look at management, so how you administer the system, how you manage virtual machines, that kind of thing, storage, etc. High availability, so looking at the back end of how the thing works for node failures or hardware failures, what happens with core models and other bits and pieces, how it actually works. I'll show you in the background in the back of the system how it works. Resource scheduling, so like DRS type stuff. So how do you do anti-affinity, affinity? How does the system decide where to put virtual machines when you turn them on? That kind of thing. Can the system move things around if a host gets busy? Because I don't know, a virtual machine gets very, very intense on CPU for a period. That kind of thing. We can do demo live migration of virtual machines. Pretty straightforward. We can do that on both Prox and VME. You'll have to keep up with me. I've got a lot of content because we're covering two of them today. But please ask lots of questions. We're going to demo live migration storage. So you might want to just free up some storage on a volume, or you've got a new array or something like that and you want to move storage around. We're going to demo that. Disaster recovery. So what happens if your primary site fails and you have a severe outage? How do you recover from that? What options have you got? We're going to look at a couple of pathways for that for you. And how do you get out of VMware into these solutions? And a demo different routes as to how you can do that. It's a very similar structure with exactly the same structure to Hyper-V the other week, and it'd be the same for OpenShift. So our lab. So if you weren't here last week, we have Cisco UCS, a couple of chassis, 16 blades, and we've got multi-site of each of these solutions. So in the primary location for VME, we've got two hosts. They're connected by NFS. VME works with NFS using a proprietary heartbeat mechanism. I'll explain that in detail when I talk about the HA section. The reason why we've got two nodes, not three. You'll read in the documentation, like three everywhere. You can run it with two. You just need NFS. There's a NetApp storage array, and there's a backup target, which could be S3, could be cloud, could be whatever you want it to be. But in our environment, it's just a section of storage, a volume on the NFS array. We have a second site, it's just got a single blade in running NFS. And we're doing, in this environment, we're doing async SnapMirror replication. That's because we've got NetApp. It could be any array with any array-based replication, just to keep it principally, talk about it more principally. Proxmox is very similar. I'll bring it all up. So we've got primary location with two hosts again, two blades. They're hosting the witness for the secondary location. The witness, I'll explain that in more detail when we get to that slide or that section. But the witness is for the second site, and the witness on the second site is for the first site. It's just a cheeky way to get the quorum model working. You don't have the proprietary NFS thing with Proxmox, you have to use what's called a Q device, which is basically a virtual machine. It could be a physical machine, but in our environment, it's a virtual machine. And that keeps quorum, so it keeps a 33% loss of vote when you lose a node rather than 50%, and you take your environment down. We've got a NetApp array again, and we are doing async replication from one to other between the sites. So that's the summary of what we've got. I'm going to bring up some screens for you. So I'll show you first Proxmox. So I'll show you the manager. So Proxmox has this fairly new thing. You can see it's version 1.01 called a data center manager. So it has the ability to aggregate multiple sites into a single console. Within that console, you get nice dashboards. You can modify these dashboards as you see fit. You can create your own, but essentially it's pulling metrics and data from the environments that you've connected, what are called remotes down here. These are the two clusters that I just talked about. So it's showing you like high CPU, high memory, that kind of thing. Number of virtual machines. If you click on stuff, it's going to show you some virtual machines. You can, in configuration, access control, realm. I've not really. It's a lab environment. I've not configured it fully, but you can add OpenID, LDAP, or AD as an identity source, and you can do 2FA using keys or top. Yeah, I've just got a single root user because I'm lazy in the lab. I'm sorry. Within here, you do have the ability to manage an SDN. So the SDN is fairly capable in Proxmox. It uses open source technology. So it uses FRR routing in the background, but you can do VLAN bridging. You can do Q&Q, so you can hide your customer or end user tags inside another service provider tag to do layer 3 over layer 2. You can do vanilla VXLAN with VTAPs and UDP tunneling to do, again, layer 2 over layer 3. Or you can do multi-protocol eBGP, eVPN, and that will do layer 2 over layer 3 in the same way, kind of doing VTAP tunnels, but it will do layer 2 MAC routes. It will distribute layer 2 MAC routes between the VTAPs using a control plane, which you deploy onto the nodes, which will sort of act. It's very similar to NSX, so it'll allow you to basically have layer 2 MAC adjacency across layer 3 boundaries. So fairly capable. It's in here because obviously the eVPN is a kind of stretch fabric thing where it's across multiple sites, and this manager is trying to own the larger estate. Within remotes, you've got a view. It's fairly simple view, but it's actually quite powerful. So you can look down here. I don't really have a decade of history, but you can get up to a decade of history. Pretty nice graphs. You can click on them and zoom in. Got server load, memory. That's me looking at the host. I can immediately jump onto the host if I want to there. I've just literally jumped on there. I'm logged in, but you can see I can get in. Look at virtual machines. Again, I can see virtual machines over time in terms of performance. Zoom in, have a look. It's quite nice. If I want to do anything more detailed though, short of like things like migrating, which I'll demo later, I can do a vMotion there. It starts to get limited. So if I want to edit the VM and I click this button, I won't do it, but it will jump to the other console. So it's in progress, right? So they're trying to bring the feature set of the local consoles into this central console. It's fairly nice. Yeah, it's 1.01, right? So the way Proxmox works is there are a set of services running on the control on the nodes, on the hypervisor nodes, which give it this interface. So this is the vanilla I'm going to close this now. This is the vanilla Proxmox interface. It runs on every single hypervisor node. If I was to jump on a node, you jump you on a node, just so you can see it, what it is. Those are the services that run on the node. ESX also has services that runs on nodes. Those are the services that run on these nodes. They equal about 3.7 gig of RAM so fairly heavy, but it gives you this interface. The interface is local, so you can see this is the version. This is host 1. This is host 2. If you look, it's the same interface on both. I could load balance that with a load balancer should I want to, or I could just round robin it and hope when one fails I hit the right box. Obviously you want a load balancer, or I could just individually hit the nodes. I'm just hitting the IPs of the nodes and it's giving me the interface, which is ultimately running on those services on the nodes. And this is the full cluster interface. It's cluster aware. So as soon as I create a cluster, each of the you can see each of the interface and each of the nodes becomes cluster aware. So no matter where I manage it, it's the same. And I can see VMs, and I can, for example, I can go and add more memory. The interface looks fairly, I'd say, clean or basic, but it's bloody fast. It's really quick. There's no faff. It's super fast. I can change stuff really quickly, save it, edit it. I can expand this. I can jump across VLANs. I've only got one in my lab, but you can jump across VLANs. It's quite a lot of cool stuff. What I like about it is it's really fast, really fast, because it's just running on the node, right? There's no separate control plane, management plane, apart from the data center manager, which you don't need. It's more of a nice to have. So it's quite nice. Yeah, so that's a sense of it. I can also, at the top here, if I click on the data center rather than the node, I get more kind of clustery type elements. So I can go and add storage. So you can see I can add a ridiculous amount of storage options. Essentially, we are using NFS. I said it, if you came to the first webinar, I talked about hyperconverged with Ceph, which it does support. You can see Ceph is there. But we're using NFS, and we've just, if you attach an NFS there, it looks normal, right? You put an ID, a server, tell it what use case you have for it. So we're going to store disk images on it. We can put ISO images on it, and what version of NFS you want to connect to, whether you want a thin version or not, which node you want to add it to. It's quick and it's easy. There is a backup product built into the solution. I haven't configured it. I'll explain backup a bit later when we go into the other areas. Just like you did in the other interface, you can add LDAP and OIDC and stuff. The other data center manager is just an orchestrator for this ultimately. I can also look at the HA, which I'll go into in a minute. Status. Yeah, so there's the interface for that. Let me move this out of the way. VME.
Sorry, mate. Just a quick one.
Interrupt me, please.
I've got a question. So how do you add a storage node to all blades at the same time, or do you need to do it manually?
If you do it at the top, it will do it to all. So when I go NFS here, if I don't say anything, you can see in grey it's got all there, so it does it to all. So it basically adds clustered storage if you do it that way, which is nice.
Thank you.
So VME, hopefully it's not logged me out. This is VME, HP VME. So VME is slightly different. So VME runs not very much locally on the nodes. They're a bit lighter. They do have some services running on the nodes, but it's lighter. The management is actually done like vCenter. There's a virtual machine. So this VMM guy here, which is running in the cluster, he is this guy I've connected to. So this is a virtual machine. It has its own Postgres database, its own sort of world, just like vCenter does. And yeah, it's collecting resources into its own entity. The recommendation from HP, which I'm not sure I agree with, let's be honest, is to put the HP manager in some magic third site that you may or may not have and manage all your environments from that third site. Maybe. You know, we've got 2 sites. So I put it in site 1 and it's managing site 2 as well. But obviously if the ISL between the sites failed, I can't manage site 2. So I get the third site argument, but it's quite complex and most people don't have a third site. So I'd probably just put 1 in each site and just accept that I have 2 consoles. There is no linked mode to date. I cannot link them together. So I'd have 2 separate consoles. It's entirely your choice, but I'm just trying to explain principles and the pitfalls of doing different things.
One other question for you, bud.
Go, man. Go.
Is there virtual switching like vSwitch/DV switch in Proxmox?
There is switching, yeah. So switching is here. You've got this concept of zones. So I've created a trust zone, and I've added my Linux bridge to it. Once I've added my zone, I can add VNets. So where I add these VNets, it pushes them across the entire cluster. So yeah, you could argue there it's like VDS for sure. It's centralizing the cluster. You can see I'm doing it there at the top, not on a node. So when you make a change here, it asks you, it stages it, and then you have to click apply, and then it pushes it. So yeah, it's pretty cool. Back to VME. Please keep asking questions. I'm happy to be interrupted. You have dashboard, which you can see here. It's an aggregate of stuff. If you did have, and I'm not going to go into today because I don't have license for it. If you had VME Enterprise, not Essentials. Essentials is the thing that is hyped up and is there everywhere in the marketing. There is also an enterprise version. You can connect to public clouds, and you can connect to lots of different things and aggregate everything into one console, essentially. And the idea is, or the principle is, that you manage your entire estate across a hybrid cloud from one console. I've not tried it. I don't know how good it is because we've not got that set up. But that's the Essentials, the enterprise model. The enterprise model also supports containerization through Kubernetes clusters, which are created in virtual machines. So it's like there is in Azure, like AKS or Tanzu in VMware. There is a HP equivalent, which deploys orchestrated virtual machines, which create a containerized environment. Not supported on the pricing model that you have seen in the first webinar. I do not know the pricing for it because the product is there, but it seems fairly obscure because it's not in the main marketing drive from HP. This product is. So if anyone wants to see that, we can certainly get a license and set it up, and that'll be a separate session. So you got this concept of instances, which is the virtual machines. It would, in the enterprise product, it would also be the containers. And you can see I've got virtual machines running across different areas. I've got a Windows virtual machine. If I click on that guy, I can jump on the console. The console opens up in the web GUI, like in vSphere. If I click on that button, it opens up separately. Yeah, it's nice. It's not too laggy. I've got the QEM. There's like the VMware tools driver that within KVM on both Prox and on VME, there's a QEM driver, and that does similar things. You know, when you install VMware and you don't put the driver on the mouse, it's like rubbish. Same thing. There is the extra added thing within all KVM platforms that Windows does not have an embedded storage driver, so you do have to inject it. I'll get into that more when we do the movement from the demos from VMware into a KVM platform. You have to inject the storage drivers, otherwise the disk can't be found. You get a failure to boot. Yeah, there's a native backup product in here which is configured and it's backing up. It backs up to an area that you specify. So in infrastructure storage, I've specified an NFS mount and it's backing them up. It does incrementals. It's kind of creating zip files everywhere. I'm not sure how well it scales. I think I said that in the first webinar. I've not used this in large scale environments, so I don't know how that scales. I would kind of think maybe it's not great, but I don't know. I'd have to road test it and give it a good go for its money. But my preference would be to use other backup technology and disable the backup. There is a backup for the appliance itself, this guy, which backs up the database and all that kind of thing. You definitely want to use that tool and definitely want to back that up, because if you didn't back up vCenter, it'd be painful, right, to bring it back. There is monitoring, but it doesn't work. So there's a nice thing. I say it doesn't work. It works down there. I always said it didn't work, but yeah, it's not showing me. If I'm using memory, I'm not using any, which is weird. I can't believe Windows uses no memory. So yeah, a bit of work to be done by HP there, for sure. But yeah, if I scroll down, you can see stuff. Go, Tom.
So I've got another question then. So the wiki tab, is that for machine notes like VMware?
Yeah, you can put whatever you like in there. Yeah, little tab. I can look at network interfaces, see how the storage is attached. Yeah, quite nice. Library, so KVM, both Prox. If I go back to Prox quickly and look at, that's DC2, look at DC1, you have this concept within the storage. I edit this guy of a role for the storage. So the role is set to disk image, meaning virtual disks, and ISO image. ISO image meaning a repository of ISOs. So if I looked at this storage, you can see I've got ISO images here. I can upload those. I can also upload QCOW images, QCOW2 images, which are disk files, which become templatable. So I can then create a virtual machine and reference that templated. Let's say it was a sysprep Windows image. I can reference that. Same thing in here. So I've got library, virtual images. It's the same thing in OpenShift as well. It's KVM. It's how KVM works. You got virtual images. You can see here I've got ISO files. I've also got this guy, which is the actual virtual machine for the manager, QCOW image. So the library is a repository. It's like the content library in VMware. Think of it like that. It's more akin to the content library because the content library has metadata that references the real files. This also needs the metadata. It can't reference the file. If I put files on the file system, it won't see them. I have to reference it with metadata. I can add the file and I can tell it that it's in a particular path in the repository and it'll add the metadata. And it would then connect the metadata to the real file. Pain in the bum, frankly. Or you can just upload it and it will create the file and the metadata together. That does create some challenges with virtual machine imports and things, which we'll get into later. Under infrastructure, you've got concept of groups. Groups is just groupings of clouds. Clouds, you can have two. There's more, obviously more in the bigger product, but you got Morpheus, which is the product itself, and VMware. Clouds, okay, yeah, well, that's the view for clouds. You can see here I've got our VME, and I've also got DC1 because I'm going to bring in VMware to migrate later. Concept of clusters. So I create the cluster in the GUI. I actually create it in here. So how you build it is you build the virtual machines, sorry, the hypervisors yourself. You boot off an ISO and you install it, and then you run some commands and you connect to them from here, and it builds the cluster from this GUI, just like you would add a cluster and add nodes into a cluster and enable HA and all that kind of stuff in VMware. It's very, very, very similar. And HP give you an Ubuntu 2204 image, which contains all of the software for VME to work. So all in VMware language, all of the vibs and bits and gubbins and stuff that are required to make the thing work. You can kind of have that pre-packaged. You can bring your own OS as well, but why you do that? So, people have different standards within their own organizations. Some people like Red Hat. I actually don't know whether it works on Red Hat, but some people are very Red Hat centric and want Red Hat and only want Red Hat. So yeah, I think it only works on Debian, to be fair. So if I click on the cluster, I can see I've got a number of hosts in the cluster. And again, I'm just sort of looking at the same data, just from different perspectives at this point. I'll just quickly click through it. Again, these are all just different views to the same thing. Essentially, the difference here is if I go to compute virtual machines, whoa, all of a sudden I've got loads of VMs, and that's because it's seeing the ones from vCenter. The vCenter environment is much bigger, so I've got multiple pages of VMs. Within storage here, it's one thing worth knowing within clusters. If you go into a cluster, if you want to add the cluster storage, like I did here, so if I went to Proxmox and go storage and add here, as per the question, it will add it to all the nodes in the cluster. From VME side, you go to the cluster, go to storage, and you add it there. And there's your options. And you can then add the storage and it adds it to all the nodes in the cluster. You can see here I've added NFS data stores, which are living on the NetApp. And they've been auto-mounted into the nodes in the cluster. These again are just different views to the same thing. Yeah, the GUI is all right. It does have migration stuff I'll get into later, and you can change. going to challenge myself now. It's in here. Yeah, identity sources. Add identity source. I can do arguably more, maybe, like OAuth and OIDC can work with on Proxmox can work with a lot of those. But yeah, you can see here they're thinking about extensions. One thing that HP does or VMware does, which is different, is it has integrations with third parties. So if I go to plugins, it has this integration with lots of different things. So they're trying to think of it more like an API for an API, kind of a bit more like Kubernetes, to be fair. But they're trying to basically say, when you create a VM, automatically go and talk to your IPAM system and add the IP into your IPAM system. Tick. That kind of stuff. They do have plugins particular to HP products. Ooh, don't delete it. This one allows you to do micro-segmentation on a C10,000 network switch. And this one, well, it's obvious what that one's for. Yeah, so it's the things you do at that point when you start using these things, this HP system will go and talk to the API of the other systems and do things like add storage or add networking or etc. So there is more of a sort of API centric language within VMware. So next section is HA. So Proxmox. What does Proxmox do for HA? So I have a 2-node NFS system. Out the box, Proxmox generally wants 3. Everywhere you look in the documentation, it will want 3 nodes. The reason why is because normally you do block storage and you'll do GFS, which is a clustered file system. We have NFS and we have what's called Q devices, which are tiebreakers. Quorum, they hold a vote within the cluster to give 33% to make the other 2 nodes 33 each, or 33, 33, 33. So that if I lose a node, so I lost the quorum device or I lost one host, I've still got 66%, so I've still got majority vote. We're all good. That is how the model works. How it actually looks, I'll show you the background. So it uses a thing called QuoroSync. Most Linux systems will use this. It uses a thing called quorum sync, or QuoroSync, sorry. And if I run that command, pvecm status, you can see here I have 2 nodes here, and I have 3. I'm expecting 3 votes because I've got a Q device. So my 2 nodes becomes 3 because the Q device, as I said before, is actually on the other site and it's connected over layer 3. It's very, very light and easy. I think it's like 250 milliseconds or something. Latency requirements, so there's no issue there.
Got another question for you, mate.
Yep.
Is there a free OSS version of HP VME?
Is there a free version of it to try it? Yeah. You can get it. So you just install it and it'll install in a trial, basically.
Okay.
You just bang it on. If you want to look at QuoroSync itself, there's the configuration file. So you can get because you got full. You can see here I'm actually logged on as root. I've got full root access. Maybe that's bad because I can do nasty things, but you can start to see things. If I do like M, I think it's M. No, never mind. Broken my thing. Broken my demo. Yeah, you can see there I'm looking at the QuoroSync quorum information. Yeah, it does have a concept of what's called fencing. So a lot of this stuff I can see over here as well. So if I go here, HA, I don't quite see as much. You can see here, quorum's good. I don't see the Q device. Do I see that? I don't see the Q device in here, which is interesting. But you can see I've got general quorum good. It does have a concept of fencing. So fencing, it's using a Linux kernel module called softdog. And fencing is basically the same as host isolation responses in VMware. It's kind of like, my node's failed, but has it really failed? Am I 100% sure it's failed? So it uses the fencing mechanism to heartbeat and check whether it has or hasn't genuinely failed. Just so you don't get that kind of flappy in out type scenario. Yeah, and there's a couple of modules, services that run on the nodes, PV cluster and HA manager, which control the timing of the failover. If you came to the Hyper-V one, I changed the timing so it failed over super fast, like in seconds. You cannot really do that in VME, in Proxmox. Proxmox is hard coded. There are some interesting forum posts where you can play around with it, but the developers do not want you to. So 60 seconds is the minimum, and then after 60 seconds, it takes another 60 seconds to fully get the lock on disks to then do the failover. So roughly within about 2 minutes, things will fail over. For VME, again, it uses a quorum model. If you do block, it's 3 nodes, GFS, same thing. If you're not using block, it does something really interesting that I had to go and speak to the developers to get a sense of. So I'll show you what I learned. If you do get into VME, go on Slack and talk to the developers. It's worth it. They have a Slack channel. You can just get and talk to them. So again, if you look, it's Linux and it's KVM. It's using CoroSync again, but it has this magic thing: two node vote, 2 node 1, which actually disables the CoroSync quorum part. It's interesting. It then uses the NFS data store as a heartbeat mechanism. Essentially, what it's doing, which took me a while to work out, is if I look at mount. I've got at the bottom, hopefully you can read this. Please put in the chat if you can't. I can make the font bigger. There's a mount which has been created when I added the clustered storage, which is here in this path. So I'm going to go and look inside that path just quickly. It's a command I prepared earlier. Inside that path, inside this NMHB heartbeat, NVM heartbeat folder, it's got a copy of XML files. It's like, interesting. What's those XML files? Well, they are equivalent of the VMX files in VMware. So they are actually the definitions for the virtual machines. So each of the nodes in cluster storage that's shared across the cluster has a copy of these definitions. So if I lost node 1, node 2 has the ability to when it's fully failed and everything's fully checked and the fencing is completed, just like it does with Proxmox, it has the ability to take that definition file, import it, and boot the VM. So essentially, it's kind of like it's like a hack. It's very proprietary. It is not. It's kind of me and Dave, my CTO, we discussed it and we're like, that's really weird that they do that, but that's what they do. They've decided to not go down the full Q device type model, and they've decided to do this proprietary thing. It's completely unique to the way HP do it. It totally works. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just different. It took me a while to get to that information, and that'll be a recurring theme if you go down the VME route. Is you might need to speak to developers. Documentation is quite light. So yeah, I hope that makes sense. So basically, what happens is node fails. Other node that survives uses that clustered storage where the definitions are. Essentially, mounts the VM, defines it inside the cluster, and then boots it. So I'm going to demo a loss of a host so you can see it. I'm going to do it in tandem. So let me just get this right. I'm going to take down the data center manager. So I've got a very poor short-term memory. So I'm just going to write down. I'm going to go prox02. I'm going to take down this host. And which one am I going to take down here? Let's have a look. I'll take one that's got a VM on it for sure. So one, it's got the VMM. I'm not going to take down the VMM because although that would be fine, it would make my demo very slow. I'm going to take down 2, which has got this Fedora VM running on him. So just look, Mr. Fedora, are you running? Yes, you are. So I'm going to take down VME2. So I'm going to go and do that for you. Just give me a minute so you can see it. While I'm doing that, I'm going to bring up what is the IPs of these guys. So here's the IP of this guy. Classic test, right? You just ping it. It's ping rules well, doesn't it? Give me a minute. Don't need to elevate. ping him. I'm on a VPN, so excuse the slightly slow latency. I need to go and ping this guy. It does tell me. I'm going to challenge myself. It definitely tells me where I think my ping is. I can't remember where it is. Interesting. Come on, monitor? No. Okay, no worries. I know it tells me somewhere. I'm going to go, it's this guy. It's probably got a DNS record because I connected to him earlier. Ping, right? Yeah, right. Work with a hash, interesting. Okay, so I've got 2 pings going, and I'm going to take down Prox2 and VME2. I'm logged into my ECS and Prox2. Bye-bye. Do not gracefully shut down, pull the power out, and VME2 shut down. I wait for these to fail, which they obviously should because I've got no power. Right, they're dead. So interesting things happen now. So obviously I was connected to 1, which is fine, but 2 is dead. So I've lost that. If I happen to be connected to 2, obviously I can't connect to it. I'd have to reconnect to 1. So that's worth knowing with Proxmox. If you had a load balancer, that would sort it. It's immediately told me it's dead. That's great. VME, interesting. So VME, a bit slow. The sync between the vCenter and the managers. I did take down the right one, didn't I? Don't make my demo slow. Maybe I read it wrong. Oh crap, I might have read it wrong. Shit. Okay. We'll wait. It's going to recover it, right? It's a cluster. Hilarious. I've clearly down the wrong host. So let's just wait. So the way I was going to go with it, I've just screwed my demo, was that the sync time, the lag between the changes happening on the host and them appearing in VMM in the equivalent of vCenter within HP PME, it's a bit slow. You can do manual syncs and stuff, but it's a bit slow. It takes a long time. So we've got to wait a couple of minutes at least for these to go. They've got to reboot, obviously, and all that kind of stuff. If I was to look, still got 1. If I was to look, this is VME. So VME is telling me that node 2 is down, and Prox is also telling me I only have 2 votes. So the Q device in DC2 and the surviving node are the only ones I have votes on. That's a waiting game. Obviously, my unfortunate demo, which is going to slow me down for the next steps, it will prove that the VMM, the manager, or the equivalent of the vCenter is not required for the HA. The HA is independent of the vCenter. You can see it's considerably slower than Hyper-V. When we did Hyper-V last week, I think we lost 10 pings, 8 pings, not many pings. I did tweak it, but still. There's an argument to be said for reliability than speed, right? Maybe we'll take that argument here. I'm just waiting. So my Fedora VM looks like it's restarted. That should ping again soon. There we go. Fedora's back. Is it back? Yeah, it's back. I've just scrolled up. Yeah. So Fedora's back. So Proxmox has done its deed. So let me bring Proxmox back online. Background, just let that boot. Oh, there you go. And I'm back. So I didn't put a timer on, but maybe you guys have been counting. Point is, it works. Just failed over. Unfortunately, I'll need to wait for the manager to load again. I'm just going to boot VMware. Well, so we've got 2 nodes again. Hold on. Cool. So that is the HA failover mechanism. Obviously, this is going to have to recover itself. So eventually, this will come back. It's got to boot the blade and the post the BIOS and all that kind of stuff. But it will come back. I'm slightly frustrated myself by getting that guy. Oh, there you go. He's failed over. He's just loading the database and loading the system. Quite similar to what vCenter does, right? Particularly if you have DNS down, it takes forever to load. So there we go. So next on the agenda is resource scheduling. So DRS type stuff. So let's explain that. So in Proxmox, which is half broke at the moment, but that's okay. I have the ability to do, well, there's a couple of things. So the first thing is in options on the cluster, I have this cluster resource scheduling CRS. So what CRS does is where do I place the VMs that I turn on? It doesn't have the ability today, it's coming to say, I have all these VMs on and this host is stressed, let's move the VM to this host. Doesn't have that capability. It's coming, but it's not available today. It has 2 modes, a basic mode, which is, as you can see on screen, it's based on the number of VMs, which is pretty basic. And it has static load. So static load is actually in preview, but it will evaluate the memory and CPU and move the VM based on resources. So it has the ability to essentially, on boot, move VMs to the right, to a better place. It doesn't have the ability to move them when they're on today. Doesn't mean you couldn't do that, but it won't do it for you. It also has the ability to do affinity rules. So I can pin, I mean, it's not going to work now because I've only got one host, but I can pin a VM to a host very simply. If I do strict, then I won't be able to move it off. If I do soft or non-strict or kind, by not ticking that box, then I will. You can see there I can very easily, oh, it's back already. There you go. It's back. Let me do it. So I'm going to say Fedora to 2. Has this concept of virtual machine IDs, which is slightly confusing. So it doesn't actually have the name in there. So each VM you create has an ID. So 100 is Fedora. Wait a little bit. There you go. It started. I haven't done that. It's just started. It's moving it. So Fedora is now moving to 2. Done. Because of that affinity rule or that node affinity rule. I can also do anti-affinity. So I can say Fedora and Windows keep together. I don't know, it's interesting. Let's see which way it goes. One of those VMs is going to move in a minute. You can see it's fairly, I mean, the GUI is basic, right? It's fairly like vanilla, but it's very functional and very fast. I'd say that consistently across Proxmox. It's functional and fast. There you go. It's decided to move it onto there, which is interesting. It's interesting given the fact, I'm not going to go there, but it's interesting given the fact that this is on basic on start and it's put them on a node that already has them. So interesting. Maybe there's a conversation to be had with Proxmox on that one. But it's abided by the affinity rule there. I will get rid of it. So in VME, if I can log in now, which I can, good.
Quick one, AC.
Yeah, mate.
So it's an overarching question, really. So out of all the hypervisors that we're covering,
Yeah.
What have we found to be most reliable in our day-to-day use, and which have been most frustrating?
VME is terribly frustrating. I hope HP probably maybe watch this video. I don't think it's production ready. Genuinely, I think it needs a bit of work. You get hung tasks in the GUI that sit there forever, and you speak to the developer, which I spoke to, and he said, just wait 24 hours. I'm like, what? Can I cancel it? No. So you get these strange behaviors where the console doesn't quite behave how you want it to behave, or it doesn't quite do what you want it to do, and delays happen and things are a bit interesting. From a kind of like running VMs and the hypervisor side, I think it's stable. It's using KVM, it's totally stable. It's just the management platform needs a bit of work, I think. Proxmox, I initially just didn't like the look of it. I was like, wow, this just looks really basic. What have they done this for? Kind of thing. That's my honest view. But it's stable and it's fast. It's really quick, and we use it in production, and we're really happy with it. Hyper-V is brilliant. It's very good. The good thing about Hyper-V is that it has full backing of most things. So it has feature parity with Veeam and many other things because it's been around for a long time and it's backed by Microsoft. Then OpenShift is a learning curve. OpenShift is amazing. It's an absolutely brilliant platform. It's very more akin to a cloud. You'll see it next week. But I would say because it's baked, it's sitting on top or within Kubernetes. If you have never touched Kubernetes in your life, you'll be confused and you'll need to get some training or be of the kind of mind that wants to dig in and understand things, because under the hood it's very different because it's a pure Kubernetes platform. My view is that is the future. That is where vSphere will go. It's already going that way. Virtual machines are being orchestrated through Tanzu now. In the next iterations, I would not be surprised if the hypervisor itself, ESX, becomes Kubernetes based and spawns vCenter as a containerized application. I've seen flings for it and things like that back in the day. So I think it's the future, but because it's the future, it's more bleeding edge. But it's a great platform, and OpenShift is really good when you want to do containers. Just it's a learning curve. It is worth caveating that, saying that I think I said it on the first webinar that there are very good training courses available that you usually get bundled with the licenses. So that kind of upskill thing is covered through that.
Thank you, mate. We've got one more as well. So when you migrated VM100, it said start a few times. Is that start migration task, or did it pause/start the VM?
Down here at the bottom. So what did it do? Migration compat. Like it thought about starting it. Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know why. Is that from? Let's do it again. I was wondering whether, because I did two things. I did a node affinity and a resource affinity. Let me just move it. Migrate to 2. Nope. I move it. Oh yeah, there you go. It's going. This looks like how it does it. It does start migrate. It's not rebooting the VM. If I was to ping it, there'd be no loss in ping. We'll demo that in a minute. It's just like that's the task order. Okay, and then so resource scheduling on VME. So VME has the ability to automatic load balance the memory based on memory and CPU, like the second option in Proxmox. The mechanics for that are not known. There is no documentation on it. There's no white paper. You can ask the devs on Slack probably, and they'll tell you. but I could not find any information on it. But it does do it, and apparently it does it according to the documentation. It does it live as well. I haven't seen it, and I struggle, and I'll show you in a minute where I struggle and get frustrated with it. So what you can do is you go to infrastructure clusters. I'm hoping it'll work this time, but here we go. So you go to the cluster, then you go to resources, and you've got affinity groups. So you can see here, I've actually got two. I've got one that says separate Veeam proxies and one that says demo anti-affinity. If I edit that guy, keep Windows and Fedora separate. Okay, let's go and have a look if it's honoring that. Windows and Fedora are both on 1. Now that's the cluster, not the VM. Hang on. This is another thing that information on that screen doesn't tell you what you need to tell you. So you have to go into clusters. Click on VMs and it should tell me there where it is. It has indeed separated them, right? Okay, so I'm going to go and edit this. And I'm going to say, oh, I can't, I'm going to delete it. Demo, keep together. Keep Fedora. That would be very painful if you had 1,000 VMs, but anyway, keep Fedora and that one together. Now, in my testing of this platform over the months and months I've been farting around with it, this doesn't work. If it does work, it takes a very long time. So I've sat here for hours and it's never done it. And then I've kind of gone, let's refresh it, let's kick it, let's whatever. And it's never moved them. So I'm not going to sit here and waste your time. Maybe we'll try and come back to it later if somebody remind me if I don't. But I've asked these two VMs to be together. And you saw in Proxmox it just happened. Not happening yet. So if I do a refresh short, or even a refresh daily, which is a heavier refresh, it's just done it. No, not yet. So interesting. Bit of work required there. Again, it's a bit frustrating, the console. It does support full failover, as we have shown, and it will place, it seems to have placed it on startup. That DRS rule I had there before, or that, what do they call it? They call it affinity group rule. It seems to have worked on startup when I felt things over, and felt things back. But yeah, it doesn't seem to. Has it done it? Doesn't seem to do it. I've sat here for hours waiting for it, and it hasn't. I'm bored, so I'm going to move on. You can also place hosts in maintenance mode and shunt them all off inside the host. I can enter maintenance mode and it will just move all the VMs off. Don't need to demo it really. It's just a straightforward thing. So moving on, if there's any more questions, please ask. Disaster recovery. So what do we do if we lose site 1? Is the premise. One option is we use our friend, Mr. Veeam. Give me a sec, just connecting. I'm using Veeam to backup and remove, backup and recover virtual machines. That's one thing we can do. So it is worth knowing that VME today is in beta. It is not in production for Veeam. So what I'm showing you today is subject to change, but it is available as a partner. Not sure it's public. You could try. It might be public as well. It's on the forum. If you go on the forum, you can get access to the beta. So you can see here I've got backups of different things, and I've got backup of VME. So what's in my backup of VME? Got Fedora and Windows VM. Exciting. and I'm backing up to a repository. So this Veeam setup is in the second site. So everything I back up, the way it works is proxies are pushed when you configure the infrastructure. It configures proxies. So it basically deploys virtual machines, Linux virtual machines, to the either Proxmox or VME nodes. They both behave exactly the same because they're KVM solutions. So those proxies get dynamically turned on or off depending on what I'm doing within Veeam. So I'll have a proxy at source in DC1 doing its dedupe compression, all that kind of stuff, and pushing the traffic across to the DC2 repository ultimately, where I'd have a backup in the second site. So if I lost the first site, this console and all the capabilities would be totally doable. So I'd be able to go to home and I'd be able to go to disk and I'd be able to say, what backups have I got? Well, it just so happens I do have some backups and I can recover the VMs. I can't do instant recovery. That's exclusive to vSphere and Hyper-V. That's when you mount the repository for Veeam directly to the hypervisor and then very quickly recover the VM, and then you complete the wizard and move the storage back to production storage. We demoed that last webinar. I can restore the entire VM. You can see I can go cross-platform, but obviously it's VME to VME. If it was a DR environment, I can just recover back to VME, and I can recover the restore point. And I can pick a new location and I can pick where I want to put it. So that's my second site. That's my second DC. And I can pick where I want to put it. So I can put it in DC2. This has DC1 there for other reasons. Ignore that. Don't confuse yourself. And I can give it a new name if I want to. Yeah, it already exists. So I'll just put restored. And I can give it a network. So I could put it on the same VLAN or a different VLAN. It depends on your networking, right? Some people have stretched things. Some people have, BGP, EVPN, or whatever. But essentially, I can pick the compute network where I want to store it. I'm not going to bother doing it because it just restores it and it will bring it back on the other side. And the same thing with Proxmox. I can do the same thing. Capability-wise, it's very similar. I can do application restores if I had Postgres, or I had Active Directory, or I had whatever was on that virtual machine. I actually don't have very much on these. They're just flat VMs, but I can do full application recovery as well as full file, individual granular file, the full virtual machine, that kind of thing. So you've got a pretty good feature set across both, but it's the same for VME and the same for Proxmox. Do not have replicas. Replicas do not work in Hyper-V, only to those two platforms, vSphere and Hyper-V. So yeah, that's one option, is I use third-party tool. Obviously, there are other tools, lots of other backup products out there. I've just shown you Veeam as an example. Other thing I can do is I can use my array replication. So if we think back to the presentation, we had async SnapMirror. So if I log on to my Net app, which is where our storage is, and look under protection and filter by NFS, you can see here I have Proxmox data stores asynchronously mirroring from DC1 to DC2. So I have the capability to bring those back. Now the challenge comes with KVM, and it's not a big challenge, but it's a challenge. It's a thing you need to understand. Is that the resources on the data store need to be registered inside the solution. So just like in here, where I've got virtual images, and if I added an ISO to this path where this is pointed to, the NFS path, it's not going to appear in this console because this console needs metadata to register it. Exactly the same thing happens with the SnapMirror. I can SnapMirror and bring it and mount it, and happy days. How do I then register the virtual machine into Proxmox, and how do I register it into VME? Well, I can show you. I'll show you how it works. So Proxmox, what I'm gonna do is just quickly update. It'd be so much easier by command line, but I'm quickly gonna update these mirrors. They're not too bad. 26. They're 26 minutes lagged. They mirror every hour, I think, by default. So that's fine. So at the source site, just so you get a sense, I'm just going to take you through this. Please ask questions if I'm confusing you. I am going to look inside here. So this is a path. Oops. This is a path which contains this is actually where, if I did mount, this is one of the mounts that I did for the cluster storage. So inside there, I've got folders. And if I look inside images, you can see I've got my IDs. So like 101, 102, 103. Look inside there, I've got QCAN images. That's nice. So I've got the disks, the virtual disks. So that's the kind of what the structure looks like. I'm going to create, I've already created it, a folder called VMXML. And now I'm doing this manually from DC1, right? So this is crazy because you wouldn't have the ability to do this. But let's just say you set up some scripting to do what I'm about to do before it failed. And you could do it repeatedly. I need to do this. I'm just going to show you this folder. Yeah, I want to show you this folder. So this is the folder outside. This is like within the system where it keeps. Yeah, keeps the system, right? So let me just do these commands. I need to copy those. Yeah, okay. I did it earlier. So I've copied the XML files or the config files. If I go and look at those, let me just get this. You do this on a script. You do this like in advance. You wouldn't do this now because you wouldn't have the option to do it now. But you see this config file, that's the same as a VMX file in VMware, essentially. So that is the virtual machine definition file. I think I showed you quickly the XML files on PME. In Proxmox, they're config files. So let's say I had a script running, which could run in a central place on a server which orchestrates like an orchestration server. It could run on a cron job on these boxes, but it's probably not a good idea. You probably want it sort of outside. And I'm taking copies of these config files. I then have the ability, because they're actually if you look where they are, they're inside the snap mirrored volumes. So I have these config files. So I'm going to go to my second NetApp and I'm going to break. Break means, if you don't know a NetApp, break means I'm failing over, essentially. So I'm making these volumes writable. In a NetApp world, they're read-only until you break them and then they become writable. So on my second site, I now have writable copies of these volumes. So if I come out of my primary site, which let's say it's dead, because it should be dead theoretically. I come into my secondary site, my surviving site. I have copies of these files. I'm cheeky. I pre-mounted them. So I've gone into DC2 and I've mounted DC1. You can see it there in storage. I've already mounted these SnapMirror volumes. So I've got a copy of the DC1 storage. Yeah, and that means I have a copy of the XML files. So I can then, where they live, I do ls in there, that path, put a slash on the end, that is where the Proxmox system looks for virtual machines. So I've got 101, 100, 101, 102 in DC2 at the moment. So let's go and have a look. Yeah, I've got that one, and that one. So I'm going to go and copy. What have I got? 106. Let's get 106 in. So I'm going to do this. I know this is scripty. I'm just showing you how it works. I'm copying this. So I've now got 106. And I'm going to restart a service, which all of a sudden I've got DC1's VM. Ta-da! Now DC1's VM, let's have a look at it. So this is the definition from the first site. You can see it's got similar paths. It actually references, it doesn't reference the mount point path in Linux. It references the name of the data store within Proxmox. So let's check my notes. Oh, the one thing I need to change is I don't have VLAN 10. It doesn't exist. I have a new VLAN. So I've just flipped that config file to the second site network, which is fine. And then I'm going to start him. Wait for him to start. So you'd obviously, that's quite intricate and messy, you could say. But the nuts and bolts, the brass tacks of it is I now have, ta-da, I have just started. I've just done a SRM failover in Proxmox, basically, by fudging around with some config files. You'd want to make that more clever, and you want to do that in a more kind of coherent way. But that is the nuts and bolts of how you'd fail over if you were to do it using SnapMirror. Now, what about VME? It's very similar. The problem with VME, and I'm just going to go into it quickly because the clock is running on and we haven't got infinite time. So if I go into VME, the problem we have with VME is I have mounted, like I have with Proxmox, I've pre-mounted the data stores. And the VME has one advantage is that heartbeat mechanism that was there already has copies of the XML files because they're heartbeated. They're naturally copied into those directories. So I already have them, which is brilliant. The challenge is, and this is where it becomes fun, if I run this, so virsh is the command line tool, like ESX CLI or something like that within ESX. So that's the KVM tool. So it's saying I have no virtual machines on this system. And I can define one. So I can type virsh define and give it an XML file, which I'd need to give it the right one, and it will go and add the VM. And the problem you have is that if I was to look at this VM, the definition file, and then I looked at my mount points, problem with VME is that its mount point in the XML file, in the definition, has this GUID. So in Proxmox, it referenced the clustered storage name and it ignored the mount point. In VME, it actually hard references the mount point, which does not exist on my other cluster because it's a random GUID that it creates. So although I can define it, I've just defined it, it ain't going to work. Yeah, so if I go back to VME now and I go to infra clusters, go into my cluster and refresh my cluster. I do it that one. And I go to a host. Which host did I do that on? Hang on. Oh, it's the wrong cluster. Hang on. Refresh the right cluster. Just so you can see some of the challenges. And then I click on the host and I go into the host and I have discovered VMs. Eventually, once it's done its refresh, I will see that definition that I've just registered, but it will have the wrong path and it won't boot. So I'm not going to fix it on this call, but essentially you'd have to write some scripting using sed or whatever you want to do. There's lots of ways to do it to change these paths, and then it would turn on and you could use it. So it's a little bit more painful because it references these hard paths. So Proxmox wins there in terms of using native SnapMirror. This should, again, it's a thing of frustration of how slow this console is. It's just drives me nuts. But yeah, it will appear. I've done it like 6 times in practice. It will eventually appear when it wants to. There you go. It's appeared. So I click on that and I go convert to if I go convert to managed, it actually brings it. I don't want to do the agent because the QEM agent is already installed because it came from an existing hypervisor. If I execute that, it's going to bring it. It's got a conflict in name, so it'll probably bring in slightly weird. There you go. It's bringing it in with a -1 on DC2, but it's broken because it's got the wrong paths in. But you see the principle. You can get the nuts and bolts of the principle. And if you're clever with scripting, you can get around those issues fairly easily. You know, it wouldn't be difficult to write. As a company, we've written PowerShell scripts that compete, as it were, with Site Recovery Manager. You just need to be a bit smart with your scripting. Okay, so that gives you a sense of 2 pathways. So one is Veeam or another vendor, many other vendors, no need to mention them all, using backup recovery, sort of third-party migration tools. You can also just use the native tool sets, but you can see there's a little bit of work you need to do and you need to invest a bit of time with a bit of scripting. So the last section is, how long we got? We got a bit of time. It's migrations, which is often the most interesting piece for people. So what can we do to get out of here? Here's our vCenter environment we have, and we have 3 webinar prepared virtual machines. We have Red Hat. We have one for a Shift demo, which I'll do last, and a Windows one. So we want to get these VMs into the solutions. So what options have we got? Firstly, imagine this is a vanilla virtual machine, Windows 2025 running in VMware. It is not going to have the KVM driver set in it. Now, not a problem. You can boot the VM and you can put the drivers in there. The one challenge is to get the boot driver for storage in. You can't just install the tools. You have to reboot the virtual machine into recovery mode. You go start, type in start, advanced, startup. It goes in, reboots Windows into recovery mode. You go into command prompt, and then you install using dsym. You install the boot driver that way. You point to the INF file. I can give you, if you wanted the article, I can give you the article. It then has the ability to see the KVM disk driver to boot the server. So if you had 1,000 Windows virtual machines, you could technically push the driver itself through group policy or Intune or whatever, some sort of platform management tool. But the injection of the boot, the actual SCSI boot driver, or the driver that is currently being handled through VMware's driver or baked into Windows, it won't work without doing this additional step. So there is some legwork to do to get into the world. It's exactly the same on all platforms. All KVM platforms have the same issue. It's just because Microsoft have not baked in the driver, the storage driver in particular, into the system. The other thing that you'd need to do is later, same with most migrations from different platforms, you'd obviously have to strip out the virtual machine drivers and all that kind of stuff. And some of the tool sets will do that for you, so it's not too bad. If you have a Linux system, most modern Linux systems already have the drivers in them, and you don't need to worry about it. The actual guest interaction driver, the QEM driver, the Virtio driver, and the QEM tools, you can just install it through DNF or apt or yum or whichever package manager. but the core disk storage driver it should be in there. It's modern Linux. So Proxmox, how do we get stuff from? How do we get this guy? How do we get in? How do we get him into the other side? So what we do is we go into Proxmox, and you have this ability to attach Proxmox to the API of vCenter. So I pre-added ESXi host. Now you can add a vCenter directly, but because the vCenter then has to kind of communicate back to the host, it's slower. So it's not recommended. It's recommended to add the ESXi host directly. You can see here, I can see virtual machines running on this system. I don't know where it is. Where are you? You are on 1. So if I type in rel, so that is that guy. I can literally just click import, and it's good that you've seen the previous bits, because the registration of the VM needs to happen into the KVM platform, regardless of whether the storage and the data is there. You still have to register it. So this is what this is doing. This is registering a VM, and it's going to look at it and kind of pull in reasonable defaults. You can see here I've got options: raw, QCOW, and VMDK. Interestingly, Proxmox can, if you mounted the NFS data store in VMware into Proxmox, I can actually create a VM and attach it to the VMDK and boot it, and it will work. Now, that sounds great, and we've used it. We have used it for VMs that are enormous, like multiple terabytes. Fantastic tool. Problem is that when you do that, currently in the current versions of Proxmox, you then are restricted on vMotion. So vMotion will not work. So QCOW, I'm gonna convert it from VMDK to QCOW, and you pick reasonable defaults. I don't want to see ROM. I'm going to put it on. I don't want that. Pin 11, and I just click import. So that is now going to talk to the API in vCenter and start pulling in. You can see here it's already at 1%. It's done 600 meg. It's done 1.2 gig. Off it goes. If I look in here, I don't really see anything. It's just happening. I have to do it off. It has to be off the VM. But it's pulling it in, and it will pull it in and happily do that. So very, which is a consistent theme for Proxmox. Simple, dirty, as it were, but fast. It's just reliable and fast. What else to say on that? I think that's it, really. That's going to import it on that one. So VME, how do I do it in VME? So under tools, so it's worth saying I've already added under clusters. I've already added my vCenter. Sorry, not clusters, clouds. I've added VMware here. So this is representing this. And you can see here it's found 56 virtual machines, which is maybe right. I don't think it's got the other side, but it's got the side I want. So I can then go tools, migrations, and I get, well, you can see I've tried it before, but I can go add, and if I put Windows migration demo 3, I don't know what number was that. Source is vCenter, target is I want to go DC1, resource pool, that cluster, group, that's just the containing object. Which virtual machine? So I want to go, what's it called? It's called Win25 VM. Win25 VM. Select, next. Where do I want to map it? Which VLAN? That one. Which data store? That one. If I can do this, and I can, it'll auto install tools. I'm going to turn it off just so it's faster. But if you put in credentials, it will go and do pre-checks, get rid of VMware tools, put on guest tools, that kind of thing. Okay, next. complete. Now, interestingly, this one, once it starts, and then run the migration. This one does something different. This one is doing an export to an OVF. It's literally, if I was to do it manually, it's literally doing an export of an OVF from here. Where's the, I've lost myself now. Export, there it is. Export to OVF. That's what it's doing. So it's exporting it. And I can see the state it's in there. It is slow. Honestly, it's slow. It'll take a while, but it will work. So slow but reliable. And that's the native toolset. I'm going to leave them going. The last one to demo is a use case if you're NetApp centric. If you are a NetApp partner, then we have a wonderful tool which I demoed last time for Hyper-V. I've reconfigured it called NetApp Shift. The NetApp Shift allows you to take virtual disks in a data store or a volume in a NetApp and flex clone them without any storage implication apart from a bit of metadata to the same volume but inside a queue tree. Queue tree is a kind of like a folder that you can do things on, like set permissions and security styles and other bits and quotas. Inside the same volume, we're using a file level flex clone. So very quickly, it will take that source VMDK and clone it to a QCOW2 image like that. And it doesn't cost any storage or very little IO. A bit of computation, obviously, it needs to compute the blocks that are the same. It's using a dedupe mechanism where it kind of goes, hey, I already have all these blocks. I'll just point them over here. So you have a concept of sites, which I've got KVM and VMware. So VMware being the source and KVM being the target. Resource group has just got one VM in it, which is, go back here, it's this Shift demo guy. And then I have the concept of a blueprint. So I can create a new blueprint, demo, pick my source site, pick my target site, click continue, pick the resource group, click continue, click continue. Now I can again here, VM process, go and prepare the VM, get tools on there, that kind of stuff. I'm not going to do any of that. Just make it faster. Can schedule it. I'm not going to. I'm just going to create the blueprint. Now, while that's there, I'll bring this over here. This is currently a part of CIFS path because the NetApp's multi-protocol. I've shared it via CIFS so I can see. This is the queue tree that it's going to convert VMDK in. If I went back one, that there is this virtual machine. So if I look inside there, it looks like a virtual machine, right? Normal kind of stuff. VMDK, VMX file, blah, blah, blah. If I go into NetApp Shift, I've also shared this with Proxmox for later. So that's why you got the Proxmox style folders in there. So if I go convert, watch this. This is 90 gig, I think. Doesn't matter how big it is very fast regardless. Off it goes. It creates some snapshots for some rollback. Not that you really need it, it's just creating a copy of the file, but it's creating some insurance policies. At the moment, it's not started converting it yet. It's just doing some preparation work. Just making sure there's no snapshots on the VM. Triggering additional VM snapshots. Again, just insurance policies. You'll see those occur in vCenter. So they occur as these weird manage object labely weird things. You can see here I've got DRO snapshot. And then eventually it's going to start, here you go, triggering, done, right, off it goes. Done, bang, finished. 55.2 seconds. we now have QCOW image. So it's done 90 gig in 5 seconds. We have converted many terabytes to customers in not very long at all. So you now have QCOW image, and we are almost in the same boat as we were before, where we failed the snap mirror over and we had the data, but we didn't have the metadata. We're kind of in the same boat. So what I've done in advance on Proxmox, let's actually finish that import, is I have pre-added this data store. You can see here, it doesn't know what's in it. It's kind of like, there's nothing in here because the metadata doesn't exist. But this is the same NFS data store that was at source. So I can then go and create a skeleton VM. Let me grab the. That's very lazy of me, but let me grab the name. Bonk. It's HA. Why not? It doesn't like there's a space in it. It is Windows, and it is 2025. Yes, I do not want an ISO. You can tick this tick box. It's a really handy tick box. It will automatically mount the Virtualisation driver for you, which is really handy. It is UEFI. Obviously, I'm going to be wanting to look here. I mean, I know this off the top of my head, but I'm EFI secure boot.
We've got another question, mate.
Yeah, man. Go.
So do the migrations sort out static IPs, etc., on VMnet 3 NICs, for example, or do you then have to go in and manually create NICs and VM inside VMs?
The VMs will sorry, the NICs will come over, but they'll come over with the original static IP, and then you'll have to go and change it.
Okay.
So disk, SCSI 90 QCOW. I'm creating a disk for fun. I don't need it. I'm just creating a disk. Let's go a couple of sockets, whatever. 11 off. I've got a VM. Wait for that to instantiate. Shift demo 1. If I went back to here, where did I create it? Shift demo 1, images 107. So that I'm doing it in. I can do that in SSH, but I'm happen to be doing it over SIFT. That is. This guy's 107, so that actually is the disk image. In hardware, the disk image I care about is called, oh crap, I put it on the wrong storage. Ha ha ha. Hang on. Patch, remove, add hard disk. SCSI, that storage would be better. 90, add. So disk one, right? QCOW disk 1. So go back to here, this guy. I haven't turned this VM on, right? So if I'm just cheeky and I just go old.
We've got another question as well. Take it you could script this rather than having to use the GUI.
100%. Yeah. I'm just if I show you manually, you can kind of piece it together. I want to copy it. Don't copy it. Cut it. You can see what I'm doing. Now I've got that disk image in play. I did fart around with it a bit, but I removed it and added it. So I've just got to make sure boot order's right. No, it's not. I just want that one. That's my boot order. So it should, in theory, now start. And this last word. Here we go. We give it a go. Decided. Oh, look, the CRS thing worked. It's decided it don't like that host. It wants the other host. Fair enough. Da, 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 da. It'll go through a bit of a weird cycle because you fundamentally change the hypervisor, so it does a bit. Windows gets a bit confused for a bit and then reboots. There you go. EFI boot done. Here's the confusing bit. It's now using the new storage driver and getting it ready. Let's just watch it. It does one final reboot. Now, while it's doing that, I could do the same thing on VMware. Shout out if you really want to see it. But essentially, it's the same thing. I would do the shift thing, get the disk, attach the NFS to VME, and do the same thing essentially. I create a VM and then change overwrite or replace the disk with the new disk. It's just a thing within KVM platforms, is that you've got the kind of metadata within the KVM platform that's not necessarily what's live on the file system, if you see what I mean, because there can be a disconnect between the two. It's exactly the same process. You've kind of seen that from many different angles, and you see me struggle with CLI a bit, but you probably got a sense of what needs to happen. If you want to see it, I can do it on VME, but it's the same thing, and it will work in the same way. You can see it's just bigger. The other one is theme, but I've already shown you that, so you can recover to another site, just doing a redirected recovery of the VMs. Obviously, you just need the backup and the VM console to do that. So there's one thing I missed. I don't know why I missed it. Is just migrations. So if you want to move things around, it's really straightforward. You just in Proxmox, you just go migrate. It auto picks. Like in ESX, it's annoyed me for decades. You kind of go migrate, and it's like, which host was it on? You can't quite remember which host it was on, and you can pick the same host, and then it migrates it to itself, but it doesn't really migrate. With this one, it just shows you what you haven't got it on, which is quite nice. So that will migrate that VM over to that one. If I want to do storage, then how do I do that? I do VM hardware. Where is it in? Hang on, I've forgotten where it is. Disk actions, move storage. So I can move that storage to a different area. I don't know where it is right now. That's not told me where it is. It's on 1 at the moment, so I can move it to 2. This little tick box is interesting. It has like a fail-safe mechanism where if you don't tick that box, it actually keeps the source disk detached on the VM as a fail. I mean, I don't know. It's crazy. Anyway, it's got an option to keep a copy of the disk it's just moved. I'd always tick that box. Otherwise, you're going to fill it with storage array. So there you go. It's now moving the disk. It does all this non-destructively. Within Linux kernel, it uses a thing called contract, which does stateful packet inspection and tracks network connections. So it does it in a way which you don't lose any packets and pings. Same as the other ones. There you go. It's already done it. It's just moved to storage. So that's like, again, really easy, really straightforward within Prox. Within VME, I went to my instance, like my Fedora instance. Let's say I wanted to migrate the storage. I go reconfigure, and I just change this value. So it's currently on 2. I can put it on 1. I go to history, weirdly doing what's called a resizing. whatever, moving, resizing, or whatever. I don't know why it's called resizing. It's now moving the storage. If I want to do a VM move of a virtual machine, where are we? So go clusters, go into here, find a VM. Maybe this one, maybe the one I'm on for fun. Manage placement. So instead of reconfigure for storage, you can manage placement and you pick the other box. Okay, history. It's not come up. It will move. Host name 1. Should have really been careful when I did that, but maybe someone's watching closer than me. I'm trying to find the host that it's on. It's currently on 2. It's going to move it, essentially. It's never failed. So again, very simple, straightforward GUI operation. Can be done for API. The HP system has a very rich API. Proxmox has interactions, but not so rich. The HP system is very much built for APIs, interacting APIs to APIs, which is back to those extensions, integrations that I talked about. The ability to do like IPAM and other bits and pieces. So it's definitely built for that. So that there concludes all the things I wanted to demo, really. Hopefully that's been useful. I think we have a little bit of time, so I'm happy to just sit around for a couple of minutes if you guys want to ask any questions.
No, thanks for that, mate. That was brilliant. So we have had another question.
Yep.
Is there no running tasks for you to see the progress in the HP product?
So there's a global one under operations, under activity, which looks like, oh, that was me trying to delete stuff, which shows you recent things.
Yeah.
But then under, if you go into the VMs, I don't know why it didn't show me the VM move. You've got this history tab here, which shows you things you've tried to do. So those are the 2 areas that I found in the product. You do have a health tab, which has a log. So the health is like the health of the equivalent of a vCenter, essentially, which is quite nice. Shows you how the things are doing. It also has a log. So if you wanted to see more lower level details on what's happening, debugging's off. But if you wanted to see exactly what's going on, you can look at the logs.
Okay. And then is there something similar to V-distributed switches on HPE?
So the switching side of it is done in a policy area. So the networks that you configure are pushed, yeah. So it's similar to Proxmox. When you configure the network at the top, it pushes it down. Here, when you configure these networks, you assign them to the cluster and it pushes them down. So these objects are centralized within the cluster. So yeah, it's a kind of, I sort of think as distributed switches is like policy driven switches. And that's what this is natively out of the box.
No, I think that's it, mate. But yeah, thanks for everyone for the questions and making it interactive, and AC for all the demonstrations. So yeah, same time next week for the OpenShift containers bleeding edge future technology session. But yeah, no, it's been brilliant, guys. Any more questions in between now and then, just pop them over in this chat. It will still work. And then we can go from there.
Lovely. All right, guys. Take care. See you next week.
Thanks, guys. Bye.